Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of From Page to Stage. I'm your host, Wendy Corner, and this podcast is for you if you are an entrepreneur. Yes, entrepreneur. Page, stage, come together as an entrepreneur. And you may be thinking, what is she on about? As an entrepreneur, you may have a solo book out. You may have a contributory book out. You may have a blog, but I can guarantee you're on socials, aren't you? And what's that if it's not published work? Check that box. Well, then what about the stage? Now, a lot of the authors that I talk to go, public speaking, can't do that, can't do that. But you know what? If you can have a one-on-one conversation with somebody, you can have a public speaking opportunity. This, called a podcast, is a one-on-one. That's a stage. Oh, we can check that box too, can't we? You're in the right place. I have the joy and pleasure of introducing you to Sheryl Mays. Now, doesn't she look fabulous in those glasses? To just say one of her little specialties. We are all unique. Sheryl, I could tell you a bit about her journey, but do you know what? She knows herself far better than I do. So Sheryl, I'm going to bat this one over to you. Tell us a bit about who you are and how you came to be where you are today.
Oh my gosh. How much time do we have?
Cliff notes.
Well, I am always available and eager to help individuals, especially when it's the battle that we have within ourselves. And how do we get to the other side? And I believe sometimes we need an outside voice, that person that says, yes, you can, you've done it before, and here's how you did it, to let people know that you have the ability of being able to do it. And that is just been inbred in me from my youth. With my parents, it's always been, just do it. If that's what you want to do, just do it. And so, fast forwarding, again, Cliff Notes version, right? Fast forwarding in my career, it's actually been that journey of starting in the front line, being that person that's out there running and ripping around. And I'm here in Florida, Wendy, so it could be 95, 100 degrees outside.
Mm-hmm.
So to start outside and then to be able, after a short period of time, to be able to ascend in my career to a regional director, where I had the opportunity of overseeing one of our locations. And then a short time thereafter to be a vice president, where I oversaw 25 of our locations. So in that ascension, it always came back to that thought process of, how am I speaking to myself? Because if we tell ourselves, you can't, don't even put your name in the hat, you have not a chance, so don't do it, then we know the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't do it, so the outcome is definitely going to be, I didn't get it.
Yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. But if I just, put my name in the hat and said, okay, universe, have at it, my higher being, God, whomever you wish to believe is in charge of your journey, to just have at it, and then see what happens. See what happens. Now, the backside to that is you got to be prepared. So if the yes comes in, you're able to deliver.
Yes.
Yes. That's the important element of it. And so that then brings me into what I do today, which is training. Training, speaking, writing about it in books, opportunities that I have to share my message that not only helps individuals, but it also helps businesses for sustainability factors.
Okay. Because you've got a book out.
Yes.
This week?
Yes.
Whoa.
Yes, I do. I have a book. It's appropriate that this podcast is during this time, because this time in a few days, yes, my book will be available for those on Amazon, and it is called The Service-Driven Seller: How Customer Care Wins Deals and Builds Loyalty. Everything that I do falls from an umbrella of kindness. Now, nice. How does kindness relate in business? Is that kindness is profitable. Yeah. You're kind to your internal customers. Those are your staff members. They in turn are kind to your external customers. And what happens? They come back. they buy more, they get more services, they talk about it. You know, I like to call them brand evangelists because they go out and they spread the good news.
Yes.
And that's what they do. And that's what every business wants. I don't care if you're the Amazons or if you're a local grocery store in a small community. You want the same thing.
Yeah.
So how are we thinking about it in the same manner? And that's where I come in. I like to say I'm your customer service insider, your CSI agent.
Oh, see, I see what you did there. Nice. Well, that's it. I mean, to your point there, I'm sure you know the quote by Maya Angelou: people will forget what you said, they'll forget what you've done, but they'll never forget the way you made them feel. So that kindness piece, you will go back to Joe Bloggs at the end of the street rather than Walmart, because Joe Bloggs really made you feel special.
Yeah. You know, I went in and he knew my name.
Yes.
You know, he remembered me and said, the last time you got this would go nice with that.
Yes.
Right. It's that sense of familiarity. So that I think about it like this. Every chance that we have to make what I call rise and shine moments, these moments of memory, these lasting impressions, every time we have an opportunity to do that, what we're doing is we're setting ourselves up for the future. Because here's one thing we know, Wendy, something is going to go wrong.
Yep, sure as eggs is eggs. Yes.
Right? There is something that is going to go wrong just because we're all human beings. But how do I make that experience that when something goes wrong, it's not devastating? It's not one where the customer goes, I'm done, I'm going somewhere else. How do I take that negative situation and turn it around to be a positive experience?
Yes, that's the thing, isn't it? Because they're very often businesses just get scared of the negative results, the negative feedback. But if you can take that and go, how can we turn this round? You get far more credibility for having turned it around than if you had a brilliant service in the first place. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's something that people talk about.
Yeah.
Right? We like to talk about things that made us feel good.
Yes.
Right. Equally, we like to talk about things that just put us in such a horrible emotional state. We like to share that too.
Yeah. And those usually get shared a lot more than the other ones. Yes.
Exactly. So the opportunity that we have so that even when something fails, and that's what I like to say, something in somebody's experience, it just failed. So how do we fix it? Because now if I look at it from that lens, I'm not emotionally connected to it. So I don't get my feelings hurt.
Yes.
Right, by somebody's frustration because they're yelling or because they can't figure out how to communicate where their frustration is coming from. I can control my own emotions because I know that something in their experience just didn't go the way it was supposed to. And they want to be made whole again.
And that's where it comes back to the mental scripts, isn't it? The internal scripts, as I call them.
Exactly.
Yeah. Ooh. Goosey moments. Okay, Sheryl, I'm going to park that one there for a minute because this is the book that you've got coming out this very week. Audience, we're recording this the week before, but we know that this, as it airs, is the same week that it's publicated. It's being published. Publication.
Yes.
You get what I mean. Okay, so I want to take you back in time. What prompted you to start writing in the first place?
You know, my very first book. So this is number 7.
Number which?
7. This is my 7th book.
Whoa.
Yes. This will be a solo book. So I will have, at the time this is published, 2 solos, 2 anthologies. Right? And then I have 3 electronic journals. And the journals are based on affirmations because I am a firm believer in exactly what you talk about, Wendy, the power of our words. And how do we use them to get a positive outcome? Yes. Because that's important. And so when I started my journey as an entrepreneur, you know, you get all of these pieces of advice and you get all of these congratulatory well wishes on other things. right? You get like you get married, and it's like, congratulations. You get a new dog, and it's like, oh my gosh, congratulations to the new family member. You go, I started my business, and it's like crickets, and they go, ooh, why'd you do that? So
Particularly if it's outside their realm of experience, if they are very good workers in a corporate setting, then
yeah,
what does that mean even? I mean, how could you do that? Particularly if you've walked away from a corporate job.
yeah, right. How could you not get a paycheck every 2 weeks? What?
Yeah, it's not easy.
So, yeah. So I was hearing all of this stuff, and it just became so much chatter.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes when you have your heart set on something, and you've got this chatter coming in, and you start to digest it, and you start to say it yourself. And so now you're in this place of self-doubt. I want to, but I'm not sure. I think I could. And so you start having all of these internal dialogues, right? Like the devil over here, the angel over here. And so there's this conversation that's going on. And so my first book was actually called Silencing the Chatter Monsters, Move Beyond Your Fear. Because in order for us to do the thing that we want to do, the thing that gives you pleasure, the thing that you deem as your purpose, in order for us to do that, we have to silence, right, this negative chatter that's not serving us well. We have to silence that, and we have to move beyond the thing that scares us, and not even scares us, our fear. And because fear can be of something different, it can be something new, it could be, there are different elements of fear. And when I move beyond the fear and realize I'm capable, I can do this. But I can't do it unless I silence the chatter and I change the dialogue.
Flip that script. Yeah.
Right. And now I'm reframing. I'm kind of re-engineering my brain to now focus on the yes, you can. You got this. Right. You're going to have some steps backwards. And that's okay, because it's a learning process. Yeah. When I start to use that type of language, it gives me permission to fall. It gives me permission to fall forward.
Yes.
Right? And even if I fall backward, it gives me the grace to be able to say, wow, what are you going to do different the next time?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's how this journey started.
Whoa. Yeah. I mean, to your point on that one, I did have a point. It's gone. It'll come back. Audience, you can tell this is real and raw and unscripted.
I love that.
It'll come back. Okay. So that was when you started, but that was when you started to write your published work. Did you journal as a child?
You did not.
Did you not? Right.
I did not journal. I did do very well in English. I love reading.
Right.
I love reading. I love reading Shakespeare. I love reading Tennessee Williams. I love plays. I love all of the theater aspects of it. Am I an actress? Wanted to be? Absolutely not. But I always had this interesting. But I always had this idea of, man, the people that write these stories, like where's their brain thinking? When you think about the movies that we see on television, it's like there's somebody that's sitting there and they thought this up and they wrote it, and they've got like millions of people engulfed in a series that I'm binge watching. Right? Can't wait to get to the next episode.
And there's somebody sitting there. Yes.
Yeah. And there's somebody sitting there that's writing this stuff. And how many of our life stories could help someone?
Oh, yeah.
How many we've all gone through things. Thank goodness we've been able to get through them. But in that going through them, there was a lesson that we learned that could be told in such an entertaining way. It doesn't always have to be sad and depressing. Yeah. But it can be told in an entertaining way when a person actually gets both entertainment and education at the same time. We call that edutainment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
it's like they used to do in school, right? They would trick us to learn something. We thought we was having fun. And you realize, wait a second, now I remember the colors of the rainbow. Roy G. Biv.
Well, that's the point, isn't it? When you if something is fun, it's going to go in much more than if you've got this drudge about it. Hello,
Yeah.
back to those internal scripts again. Full circle. Okay, so you started writing. You didn't particularly journal as such. You loved literature. You loved the theatre, the feeling of what of the writing evoked in you. When did you actually start to do the creative writing? Because I'm wondering your academic stuff. I don't know if other people I've spoken to said that they had some creative writing skills before they went to college, to university, to school, call it what you will. They had the creativity knocked out of them because there was a certain form of style of writing that you had to do for academia. Did you have that experience?
I didn't have the writing kind of taken away from me because of that. It made it harder.
Yeah.
It made it harder because I'm a passion-driven person. I love emotions. I get excited. I have high energy. And so I write from a place of passion. And it's kind of like when you have an ego and you take this ego that's used to soaring higher than any bird ever, and you put them in a cage and you say, you only come out on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Yes.
What did you just do? Right? Even on Tuesdays and Thursdays, either they're going to go out and they're going to fly away and never come back, or you're going to open the cage and they're just going to sit there.
Yeah.
Right? And so I think about it in the fact of, the what is it? MLA, I can't even remember, right? All the formalities of when we're writing. I learned to just write it and then get you a very good editor. I don't care what you have to pay for an editor, get you a very good editor.
Yeah.
But one that
thing,
speaks your language.
Today we're expected, and the general feel is that people like to read in a conversational style. Unless you are writing quite seriously an academic paper, people want to feel, they want to hear your voice as they're reading it.
Yeah.
And that's where the power of then getting your message out on stage from your book just expands and amplifies, because if people have heard you speaking those words, as they're then reading them, they've got you in their head.
Yeah.
That is so powerful.
Absolutely. As you think about the way our brain, information enters and we keep hold of it, right? First, it comes through sound, and then we create an image.
Yes.
Right. And when we create that image, that's that added power, right? If you can create a street, right? I can talk about my street and I can say, hey, we got 20 houses on the street. Everybody's very friendly. Do people want to flock to my street? No. If I say this street is engulfed with magnolia trees, right? As you walk down, the scent of the magnolia just permeates the air, and people are sitting outside on their lawns. And as you walk down, they're talking to one another and they're inviting you over. You want to visit my street now?
Oh, yes. Yes. Because
So
you're using that wonderful sensory language.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's what people are addressed to, is their emotions.
Yeah.
And the books that I write are predominantly on leadership. It's on communication. I have not had the opportunity of writing a romantic novel, which I believe I want to at some point. So, my books are lesson driven.
Yeah.
But they're held through practical experiences. Again, things that you would
tell
look
those
at.
stories.
Right. And it's just a different lens. It's a different lens that lets you go, oh, wait a second. I thought it was just red. Right. But it's a deeper red, and it even changes the name. It's no longer red. Right. But it becomes, something much more deeper. And I think as journalists, and not journalists, as authors, we have the ability of not only putting it into a book, but then we get to what you're talking about, right? How do we bring it to life? We bring it to the stage.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. And now they get to see the passion. Right. Now our communication skills kick in, and 55% of our communication skill is visual. And so now they get to see the passion, and they hear the voice, and they go back to the book. Right? And now it just brings it to life a second time.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And now it's so much more powerful when you get to bring your book to stage.
Yes.
And you get to actually see the expressions on the faces of the audience.
Oh, yeah.
And it makes you love what you do so much more. Every time I'm on stage, I just fall in love with what I do all over again. It's
now,
like rededicating.
Audience, if you're listening to this wonderful lady and going, she's got so much energy, she's got so much spunk, she's an extrovert, she can do this, and I'm an introvert and I'm shy and I can't possibly do that. Go back to what I was saying in the introduction. If you can have a one-on-one conversation with somebody, you can share your message on a podcast. It doesn't have to be from a stage. Now, okay, you won't be able to see other people on a podcast. You won't be able to see other people's reactions. But maybe that's where you're at the moment. And that's okay. Let's get you experiencing some wins in sharing your message. And then when you've done that, then we can move on a little bit more to having a situation where you can see an audience. Just saying. Back to those internal scripts.
Absolutely. And I think the piece that I love about speaking on podcasts is that it allows you to hear your story again and again.
Yes.
And now you get more comfortable with it. Where before it might have been pieces of it that were memorized, and you're like, oh, let me make sure I say this and I say this. After a while, you just start having conversations and it just comes up.
Yes. Yeah. It's almost like gossiping your story. And as you say, at that point, if you've gone through the messy stuff, you've come out the other side, and you're, as I call it, speaking from the scars, not the wounds. Because if you get stuck in and yes, you do bring the emotions out, excuse me, you do bring the emotions out, but you don't wallow in them, because your audience is not after somebody who's going through therapy at their expense. They don't want to have the getting stuck in the mud moment. They want to know, yes, we've gone through the mud, and here we're on terra firma. We're back on the firm ground again. So yeah, it's very important that you have that opportunity to rehearse in a way. And one of the things that I do with my clients is I say to them, look, I have a duty of care with you. A lot of the times your origin story is one of trauma, and you don't want to re-traumatize yourself every time you're speaking it, which is totally understandable. So let's language it in a way that you can still bring across the emotion without going back into it full pelt for yourself. So that's something I'm very keen on. Beautiful. So we've kind of alluded to a bit of your speaking journey. Tell us a bit more about it. How did you start? Because you've been, your training, obviously that's a very big stage, a form of speaking, because we do have different platforms. We do have different stages. So you've done the training, the facilitating. Has keynoting been in your journey?
Yes.
Love it.
So I've done keynote, but you asked how did I start? It's really funny because in school, I was the person that never raised their hand.
Really?
I was that person that the teacher would have to call on, and I would have the right answers. I didn't speak. I didn't, I just wasn't assertive enough or confident enough in my answers or my response to even speak up. And so I got one of my first positions when I relocated to Orlando. I worked with a nonprofit organization. And so I remember wanted to go out. I started out as a volunteer, then I became on staff as a receptionist. And I wanted to go out and speak on behalf of the mission, because I saw, my president used to take me with him, and he would, I would watch him speak. And I said, one day I want to do that. And he says, okay. And so he says, well, come with me a couple of more times. So I came with him a couple of more times. At that time, I had actually started a program for kids. And so we were in a classroom, and he gave his first speech. And this was after, traveling with him and seeing this several times. So he gives his first session that morning. He looks at his watch and he says, hey, I have to go finish the day for me. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, what? Like, what are you talking about? He's like, no, you're fine. Go ahead and finish the day. And I did 5 classes that day.
Wow.
And from that, the bug was there.
Yeah.
Right. I just knew that this is what I wanted to do because of how it made me feel.
Mm-hmm.
And then the response that I got from those that were listening. And I knew that this was something that I wanted to do. I just didn't know in what capacity. So as I continued to work for nonprofit organizations, my role had always been from that point forward to speak on behalf of the agency.
Right.
And so I was speaking with organizations and CEOs and employees. And so I didn't realize, right, the places that we're put in certain past experiences are preparing you for what's happening in the future, that I now would be speaking to CEOs and employees, in a training capacity. And it just became full circle. And so now having the opportunity of being able to go out and travel. A couple of years ago, I spoke in Paris at a women's conference. I've spoken for some really amazing organizations as a keynote or as a trainer. And so I work with diverse industries.
Mm-hmm.
As customer service is universal.
Yes.
Right. So I work with diverse organizations, but it's all to enhance the engagement of employees so that they create these memorable experiences for their customers, which falls under that realm of kindness. And for the organization, it becomes a bottom line effect.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's it, isn't it? When it's the culture, and as you say, it comes from the top. If the from the top down, if the staff are treated with kindness, they're not going to be in terms of the way they react out, sort of down and out.
Exactly.
Yeah. Beautiful. So training, facilitating, keynoting. Have you ever done any MC work?
Actually, I have. Once
That's
a year.
another skill set entirely, isn't it? Whoa.
Yes, it absolutely is. And once a year, I MC for a women's conference that's usually held in April. And what I found so interesting about MCing is that it's not just introducing the individuals, right? You have to pay attention.
Oh, yeah.
You have to pay attention to what they're saying, because at the end, you always want to bring back the key points.
Yes.
Right. This is what we heard today.
Yeah.
And I think that's the role of an MC. We heard it. Let me tie it all together for you so you don't walk away disconnected. Right. So there aren't fragments.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So I've had the opportunity of being able to do that. And I find that very fun and very rewarding, because I don't have to memorize a script or anything. I can just have fun with the audience. And I enjoy doing that, and leave it up to the speakers to do their thing.
Do you know, this audience, if you are skilled, if you develop the skills of an MC and you are known as a good MC, you can earn more than the keynoters, because you then are selected to go on the circuit, because event managers talk. And if you've had a good response, they'll go, do you know that Sheryl Mays is brilliant? You've got to have her as your next MC. Oh, really? Oh, tell me more. And that's how your message, your referral network goes around.
You just put a bubble in my head. Because, again, I MC for this organization, but I had not really pushed, and I had not really pushed it or promoted that. And that is another opportunity for a revenue stream. So listen, those of you that are paying attention, she has answers. Miss Wendy Corner has answers. I'm just here thinking I'm doing a podcast interview, and I just got coached. So thank you.
You're very welcome. That's the joy. Okay, audience, just as a quick aside for you at the moment, this is where you as a podcast guest really deliver some brilliant value to the audience that you are speaking to. And if you can deliver that value to the host as well, there are 3 things that you as a podcast guest need to think about. You want to be referred, as we've just said. Those skills are in demand. You can be referred from one podcast host to another, and we do talk. You can be rebooked. You've had a big impact. People will want you back, particularly if you make the host look good, because then his audience go, oh, she was really good. I'll have her back. And the third thing, you want to be remembered for the right reasons. I think you can fill in the blanks on that one. Back to the customer services again, because if you're not a really fun, I don't mean that fun, but if you're not a somebody who follows the requests of the podcast host, it makes life tough for us, and you're not going to be remembered for a good reason. Even if you were a brilliant a guest on the show, if you don't actually do what the host asks, they're not going to have a good word for you. Just saying. Okay, so we've looked at your writing journey. We've looked at your speaking journey. You've got this book coming out. You've done 7.
Yes.
Are there any more in the pipeline, prolific lady that you are?
There are a couple of more in the pipeline. One I'm excited about doing. I was a caregiver for my mom for about 7 years,
right?
And she passed away last year. And so I want to do something in tribute to her, because this woman was phenomenal. She was very impressionable in my life, especially as an entrepreneur. At the age of 65, she started a business.
Oh, good for her.
And knew nothing about it. Came off of being a nurse, retired as a nurse, then became a nightclub owner. Just opposed positions.
Oh,
yes.
Well, there's a segue easily from that one.
Exactly. And so I want to do a book on life with mom, because she was a funny person. She had some sayings and quotes that I just laugh at now, and I just go, I hear you.
Oh, lovely. I'm looking forward to that one. Oh, brilliant. So that will be more like a memoir, almost a biography of somebody else.
Yeah, I think I'm going to do it in a fun way, though.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe from my dog was her sidekick, and I don't know, maybe I'll do it from the voice of him, following her back and forth to the restroom, and
I love it.
As she walked around and going, here we go again on our 20th walk around the house. Because he was right there with her.
Oh.
So I like to do that. The first book I did, if anybody remembers The Twilight Zone.
Oh, yes.
The first book is really based on that concept of these individuals. Throughout the story, I share several successful business owner stories that they gave me permission to be able to share. And so our traveler, this one that's going through this internal battle of should I not, she finds these individuals in places that are very obscure. And she can't recall, like, how did we get here? How did I get there? Nobody knows except they have a message for her.
Right.
And so it's really about the people that you are supposed to meet in life will come at the time that you need them to be there to give you encouragement and strength.
Yeah. When the student is ready, the teacher will come.
There you go. Exactly. And so I like to take different looks at it from that regard. The new book is actually coming from the lens of, I want you to walk away having not only deep dived into how can you make an impact in the level of service and the benefits of that impact, but there are also areas where you put together an action step.
Yep.
Now that you've read about this topic, what are you going to do differently?
Yes.
Right? What stood out for you? Oftentimes we get these books that are 500 and 600 pages, and it takes you a year to be able to read, and then you don't do anything because it's too much material.
Yes. Yeah.
And so there's no breaks in between to say, okay, wait a second, let me gather my thoughts, let me get it down, and then I can move forward.
Yeah.
So I didn't want that to be. So in this book, you have the ability of being able to say, okay, let me stop. Let me figure out what's being said here, and then let me put together a plan. How am I going to use this information? Yeah. How is this going to benefit me? So at the conclusion of the book, you got action steps, right? There's 13 chapters, so you will have 13 action steps.
Have you actually got space
in the
to
book.
write in the book?
Yes.
Brilliant.
You have a place within the book to write,
Yeah.
so that so everything is contained within the book. Right? And you can go back, you can look at it again, you can see where was I when I said this, based on where am I now in the next quarter or in my next career. So you can come back to the book repetitively. And it's interesting because as I wrote it, I amazed myself. I was like, am I doing this? I said, I need to look and make sure I'm doing this too, because this is good.
Yeah.
And it's all information that I've either has been shared with me from some of my clients. It's been shared with me through my past experiences. It's been shared with me through customers that have appeared on the podcast, or folks that just know this is what I do. And they're like, I got something to share with you. So it's all of that. And it's just an amazing opportunity for people to have within the confines of 140 pages.
Excellent.
140 pages. You have the opportunity of being able to create a relationship with your customers that allows you to further whatever your career is in sales. If you want to be at the top of the leaderboard, how do I get there quicker and smarter? This will help you do that.
Yeah. To your point about the length of books, I'm finding that because we live in the too long didn't read era, one of the gentlemen I interviewed for this podcast just before Christmas, his benchmark now is to have a book that you can pick up on one side of a transcontinental airplane trip and have finished it by the time you get to the other end. So roughly 3 hours start to finish. And I looked at that and thought, that's actually a really good benchmark. Because as you said, you got the 600 page tome. It becomes shelf development. You don't actually remember what you started with. So yeah, I love that. I love that. Brilliant. You mentioned you were a podcaster.
Yes. So I also have a podcast where my guests are predominantly customers that have had an experience. I like to call them the experts because they've had the experience. And so they come on and they share the good, the ugly, and we talk through it. And if it did not go well, what could have made it better? Right? What would you have appreciated? And if it went well, then, what was the thing that captivated you? Because I think my audience is primarily business owners, and it's so that you have an opportunity of being able to hear from the customers, because a lot of times we know business owners don't have the time, nor do they have the staffing to collect the data from the surveys. Now it has to be compiled into a report. How do we disseminate the information? And so it gives you the ability of just being able to tune in, hear some things, here are some solutions, some suggestions. It's not about grieving, and it's not about grievance and saying it was horrible, they shouldn't do it like this. It's like, how do we fix it?
Yes. What would you have liked instead?
Exactly. What would have made you come back in spite of?
Yeah. And is that industry specific, or is that right across the board?
It is universal. Again, because the customer service is such a universal concept. That all of us have different experiences. We have a reason why we've been with our cell phone for 5 years, or our cable for 10 years. There's a reason why.
Yeah.
And it's not just because I don't want to switch. It's because I call in, I can talk to a person, or, they send me, my bill is correct. And if I have a problem, I can call them, or they can email me. There's a reason why people stick with businesses. And there's a reason why people do a silent exit. I didn't like it. Not going to complain about it. Just never going back again.
Yep. Yeah. And why I may not complain to the owner, but I may well complain to all.
Yeah. However many followers I have on all of my platforms.
You should never go here. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, golly, yes. I'm curious. Well, I'll tell you what, audience, we will also put a link into Sheryl's podcast so you can go and tune into her work as well, because that, I'm sure, will be very useful to you as a business owner. Just saying. Okay, is that all right? Is that all right, Sheryl?
Absolutely. Please
Cool.
do.
Cool. Okay. So we've talked about your writing journey. We've talked about your speaking journey. We've talked about this brilliant book that's coming out. And you've slipped a podcast in there as well. I like that. I'm going to ask you, how do you embody your words when you take them from page to stage?
Interestingly enough, I like color.
Okay.
I like to use things that are colorful, right? Things that make people go, oh, wait a second. Right? And how do you tell that? You can tell by just monitoring people's body language.
Yes.
Right. And I think as speakers, we have the ability of being flexible in the moment. Right. That's how you can tell the difference between a professional speaker and an aspiring speaker. Right. An inspiring speaker is I'm sticking to my script. I don't care what you do. I got it in my head and it's got to come out that way. Where a more professional speaker is, okay, wait a second. They just said this. So let me talk about that for a minute.
Yes.
And let me now make that into my speech so that it fits perfectly because it's an example that they gave me. So I'm going to run with it.
Yeah.
And then I have the ability of being able to kind of get back or carry on from that point. So I like to ask questions, give me your attention. Let me know you're not on your phone. Let me know you're paying attention. So I like to ask questions. I also like to give funny stories. People that are relaxed.
Yeah.
It's like sometimes you go to conferences
again, isn't it?
Yeah. It's like sometimes you go to these conferences and you're like, oh my gosh, I got to write everything down that they say. But what happens when you're just relaxed and you're listening and you're enjoying? It's amazing how much more attention, how much more information you retain than if you're sitting there listening for point number 3. Okay, they said there were 2 points. Where's the third one? I think they missed it. Oh my gosh, now my whole day is ruined. Right? And so I like people not to be bogged down in that. But I will also tell you when it's a gift from Sheryl that you need to write down.
This is a writer-downer.
There you go, right? This right here, you want to write this down. This is gold.
Yeah. Oh, love it, love it. Because I mean, obviously, in your training opportunity, then you are definitely looking for feedback. But when you've done keynoting, I'm wondering, I'm going to ask you. I suspect you've already done this. When people lean in, you've got them, and when they just sit back, yep, they're lost. So even that, and if your audience, if you get the opportunity to be on a stage where you have house lights and they are down, you will only be able to see the first couple of rows anyway. See what their reaction is, because they will probably be a good gauge for the rest of the audience. And if you get that lean in, go mental note to self, that bit works. I'll do that one again.
Yeah. And you can even address it and say, okay, I see I got some of your attention, right? Others of you might still be wondering what's going on. So let me break it down a little better for you. And you have fun with them.
That requires you to know your stuff really well.
Exactly. And I always go like this. Nobody knows what you're going to say but you.
Yeah.
They don't know if I missed a line that I rehearsed forever.
Yeah.
I'm going to figure out how to bring it back in the end, because if it's good, I'm using it.
Oh, absolutely. On that point, though, Sheryl, I did a 5-year stint as head speaker coach at University of Western Australia's TEDx team. And the first thing the students, because they were all student volunteers who ran this, they would tell the speakers, you've got to keep to your script. And I stand up there and go, no, you don't. You've got to keep to the stats, the facts that they have checked, so that they can tick their box, that it ticks the box for TEDx. But know your material so well that you can judge the audience, go off piste, as long as you come back and finish at the finish line.
Exactly.
And of course, students are going, don't tell them that. I said, no, they need to be able to do it flexibly. So you know your material so jolly well. So yes, rehearse from your script, and know then how you can go off piste.
Yeah. It's like you never, you've seen this happen when you have a speaker, they've been interrupted and they're like, okay, gosh, now wait a second, where was I?
Yes. Yeah. Whereas those who know their material so well can dovetail that interruption.
Mm-hmm.
That fire alarm. Do you know that fire alarm reminds me of such and such and such and such, which segues you back into the room, particularly if you can then make a joke of it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant, brilliant. Sheryl, I've absolutely loved our conversation. As we're winding up, are there any final thoughts you'd love to leave us with?
A couple of things based on your words are power. When we think about how we're going to move forward in life, right, the words that we speak are so vital to our own growth and to those that might not comment on your social media post. They might not, respond to your email or your newsletter, but they're watching.
Oh,
and
yes.
They're paying attention.
Yeah.
And you leading by example shows your level of consistency and belief in doing what you do.
Yeah.
So stay consistent and stay true to your word and have fun. Have fun with the purpose that you've been given in life.
Yeah.
Because when it's no longer fun, then you're not providing value. So have fun. And get my book.
That fun
Get my book.
Sorry, what was that last bit?
The last one was get my book.
Oh, absolutely, get a book. Sheryl is also offering us, our audience, something rather precious. So we'll put that information in the chat as well, so how you can access it. Do you want to talk about that now, or just we'll leave it for the show notes?
Leave it for the show notes. That means that you guys, a homework assignment is to go back and visit the show notes.
Exactly. And at the bottom of it, you're going to tell us what your biggest takeaway was, aren't you? Just saying. You've got an absolute consummate trainer there who's going to go, so what was your biggest takeaway?
You got it, ma'am.
Love it. Sheryl, I have thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. And as always, it's a joy and a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you for you sharing your From Page to Stage.
Thank you, Wendy. It has been a pleasure, and I enjoy speaking to you and your audience. Have an amazing rest of your time.
Thank you. For now, bye from us.